our political leader and our hundreds of thousands of members and supporters in the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Let me also welcome all our viewers and listeners in the diaspora, those who are abroad. Let me welcome all of you to our weekly media briefing at the office of the Leader of the Opposition. This morning I have with me a distinguished citizen in our republic, a former senator, our chief economist, Brother Taharqa Obika, is with me this morning. As the alternative government in this country, we wish today to address the continued precipitous decline of our country under this evil and kleptocratic Rowley-led PNM administration. Our country is on a pathetic course of decline and almost decadence. Something that we have never experienced as an independent nation. We are 61 years old this year as an independent nation and 47 years as a Republican state. And what we are witnessing today has never been witnessed before, particularly in the area of violent crime, murders, home invasions, and what is called rampant gangsterism, both within the government and outside of the government. So we are going to focus today at our media briefing on crime and the economy. My colleague, Brother Taharqa Obika, will address the impact, implications and consequences of crime on the business community and of course the ordinary citizens of our land. I will follow subsequent to his presentation by looking at some of the root causes of this malaise, this malady confronting us, and proffer some possible solutions to overcome same. So at this time, I'd like to hand you over to our colleague and friend and distinguished brother, Taharqa Obika, who will now address you. Taharqa, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Senator Mark, and good day to citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. The issue that we face with right now is important for economic stakeholders to take stock of a few key important issues that I wish to raise here today. Number one, massive joblessness. With 65,000 persons jobless since this government came to office, and the decision of the Minister of Finance to trivialize important statistics. Now, where do we get that statistic from? If you turn to, because I see in the media in one of the articles said that the opposition alleged that unemployment statistics was X and Y, okay? So if you turn to the labor force, the central bank data center, labor force quarterly, And then you go now, I have the page already selected, you go now to quarterly, the first page, you go across to persons with jobs. In the thousands, you would see, as at September last year, 563,400 persons. Alright? And then, of course, if you go back to the last quarter, the last full quarter that the UNC-led government was in office, you go to June ending 2015. Okay? And when you take those two data points, you see that the total persons with jobs from the CSO, and you can go on the central bank database right now and see, was 628,600 as at the end of the second quarter 2015, and persons with jobs declined to 563,400 as at September last year. That's 65,200 less persons employed. So I hope from now the media reports will not use the word alleged. So the UNC didn't allege that there were 65,200 less persons with jobs. The central bank, using CSO data, is stating this as a statement of fact, and they are to treat it as such. Now, the second main issue will be high food prices and the absence of an appropriate policy response regarding the ability of families to afford foodstuff. The blame for this falls squarely on the Minister of Trade and Industry as the custodian of prices data via the Consumer Affairs Division. Third issue that I wish to address would be the failure to attract foreign direct investment. Now, according to the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, the first 6 years of this PNM government being in office, they've lost in terms of outflow, net flow, $7 billion TT roughly in foreign direct investment. This is losses. And this is in stark contrast to the People's Partnership, the UNC-led government, led by Cameron predecessor, 2010 to 15, where nearly 50 billion, 48 billion TT in net inflow was recorded. What does this mean, and the impacts of that in terms of jobs, business activity, I will also detail. The fourth thing is the trade policy. Was drawn up pre-pandemic for the 5-year period ending this year, 2019-2023. And no attempt has been made to review and reset to meet the challenges of the economy going forward. Now, it must be noted that this policy, this trade policy for our economy, was drafted at a time when no economist could have foretold that the disaster of the pandemic in 2020. Okay, so as a result, the Ministry of Trade is failing in its duty, at least the minister is failing in her duty to provide proper direction for the economy in the form of overarching policy, because the policy must respond to the economic demands of the day, and we are struggling to even reach pre-pandemic levels of GDP, and this is a failure on the part of the Minister of Trade. The last trade policy was done by United Nations Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean. I think the Ministry of Trade needs to look and resource their staff with the timelines to get this thing done, because we have competent persons at the Ministry of Trade. I myself work here in the part as a very junior economist, fresh out of the University of the West Indies. So now, and the last point is there are some issues because we are running into the media review. Despite Senator Mark would know that his government has not been calling us to Parliament. The Parliament is practically dormant, but they have to address the media review, so there are some issues there. So the first issue would be joblessness. Because joblessness across the board is a true indicator of economic failure. People feel it when they have lost a breadwinner in their family, and there are 65,200 families that would have lost breadwinners since this PNM government came into office. Now, and I showed you where that statistic was taken from, so I encourage the media not to report that the UNC alleged 65,200 jobs were lost, but to report that the Central Bank Data Center has that as a statistic when you look at persons with jobs in comparison to persons with jobs now. So, if the Minister of Finance has any quarrel with anyone, it ought not be with the UNC, but with the Central Statistical Office that is under his government's purview. Now, what the Minister of Finance is doing when he uses convenient statistics, you see he's playing games with the economic well-being of 65,000 families who've lost their jobs when he talks about full employment, unemployment. Now, currently there is no full employment in this country. I mean, it wouldn't take the UNC to tell the population that. But just to explain for the benefit of those who want to understand what it is, full employment, unemployment in Trinidad and Tobago is a phenomenon where once the unemployment rate reaches 4% to 5%, we say, okay, we can't do much more to bring persons into the labor market. How do they come up with that? The unemployment rate follows a formula where workers who are laid off or otherwise unemployed can be removed from the labor force. You become what they call a disgruntled worker. And so by that mechanism, this government is abandoning or ignoring the 65,000 persons who've lost their jobs. And it's a deceptive statistic to use the unemployment rate because it ignores those persons who are jobless. We in the UNC, as the alternative government, are saying that this approach to measuring and monitoring joblessness, which really brings hardship on citizens, casts aside and abandons these 65,000 plus persons and their families who have been jobless since this government came to office, and cannot be the best way to account to the people. And we are saying that the government ought to use all of these CSO statistics, not the ones that they feel will be convenient to their narrative. Stop playing politics with unemployment, and a UNC government will not forsake and abandon those 65,200 persons. So if you are among those who have lost your jobs since the PNM came into office, we hear you, and we are ready to put things in place once the time comes and the bell tolls and we face the polls once more. Now, the bottom line is that the government is only taking care of themselves. Citizens' dignity is being trampled upon by a government who simply doesn't cater for them and their needs and their families who earn way below the tax bracket, way below the $7,500 a month, and can't afford to make ends meet without relief, especially where they've lost a breadwinner. So now from joblessness, we turn to high food prices. To add to the strain on high joblessness in the economy, high food prices is being experienced by many families in Trinidad and Tobago. In February, CSO put out that food price inflation was at 14%, 13.77%. And this means that if you spent $2,000 last year on groceries and market items, you have to spend almost $300 more per month this year. And there are several families, as we explained with joblessness, that would not be able to make this increase in spending, and therefore they would have to sacrifice balanced diet or maybe some important expenses for children or healthcare and so on. So what are some of the actions the government ought to take? Well, they can simply follow the playbook of the government led by the UNC under Common Assembly Session and do the basic things. One, increase transfers to households. The last time families received transfers directly, these are cash transfers, was during the pandemic when this government got, and let's not forget, millions of dollars in aid. In fact, the IMF gave $644 million in special drawing rights, roughly 4 billion plus TT. So they had the cash to give to families. They didn't give them all. We know some went to other places. We see that on a separate note, Balize House is doing well. 5 stories plus a basement and so on. But families in Trinidad and Tobago need to also do well, and the government needs to look at giving cash transfers to those families who certainly cannot make it. They need to increase subsidies for institutions who provide food support by virtue of the business model, for example, fertilizers and other aspects. But this can come from consultation with the farmers and to provide the support in terms of farm infrastructure so that they can boost food production. When we were in office, again, there was a Ministry of Food Production. In the name, the nomenclature alone, it showed you the focus and the direction that we wanted to take, which is boosting food production and empowering our farmers in the process. Now, and basically sheltering us from some of the vagaries of the international price markets and so on. So you can have persons afford to eat locally. But instead, what do we face with? When you look at the newspapers, you see from Aranguez to Mayaro, Pradia Lassen, rearing its ugly head as a scourge of the farmers in this country. Another thing the government ought to be doing is price monitoring and a need for enhanced food support. Now, when you look at the data, in January, 28% was the increase in price of vegetables, 11% in milk, egg, and cheese, 10% increase in price for meat, 19.8, 20% virtually increase in price of bread and cereals, and 25% increase in price of oils and fats. So whilst food price inflation in January was 17%, there are things that were a lot of the basic items suffered even higher price increases, which would have affected the pockets of those who are living on the margins in this country. The price of food continues to rise given the marked food price inflation post-pandemic families are experiencing, but the government has not introduced or reintroduced the market baskets and food, nor the food hampers needed for those in need. And I'm sure you recall when there was a PNM assemblyman boasting to all who would hear that he had hundreds of food cards in his pocket available for distribution. So apart from PNM office holders playing Father Christmas, many citizens in this country don't have access. In fact, they are shut out from emergency food support by this government. And the Minister of Trade and Industry, as the line Minister for Consumer Affairs Division, ought to know that it is her responsibility to inform the government as to the pressing need of many families for direct food support, given the price increases she's seeing. And we call once more on the government to remove that, not from the piecemeal approach they're doing, but from all the 7,000 basic food items that were zero rated under the UNC-led government. I turn to foreign direct investment. Foreign direct investment, as I said, based on UNCTAD data, United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, declined by $7 billion in terms of net outflow from 2016 to 2021, so the first 6 years of this government. And they failed to create an environment that attracts investors to our shores. This results in less economic opportunities in the local economy and ultimately less jobs for our citizens. I'll give an example of what that means. When you look at the tech facilities in Moruga and Point Fortin, they are largely unoccupied. The Minister of Trade will say that they are fully tenanted, but with no jobs being created, no structure largely being erected. You have to ask the question if it's tenanted by ghosts. Because perusing the newspaper, I couldn't help but observe that, Commander, this is the Sunday Express, the article, criminals demanding monthly payments in thousands. I know Senator Mark would be dealing with crime, but specifically on the aspect of the impact on the business community, Commander Gavin Hero reported to indicate that extortion of the business community has been on the rise since last year. All right? I said Mark will go in more detail in terms of the impact of crime in Trinidad and Tobago, but this also is a deterrent to investment in our economy, crime, and the high levels of crime. It impacts the private sector in terms of business losses, increased cost for security, reduced productivity given the operating environment. Businesses that operate at night may have to close or put in extra measures for the employees to come to and fro. Crime scares away investors, and it also does significant reputational damage to our economy. So this is yet another reason for the declining economic fortunes of Trinidad and Tobago, despite the referencing of convenient statistics by this Minister of Finance, because he would tell you that the economy would have grown by 3.2% and 2.5% coming up this year, but the economy declined the year before by 7.7%, almost 8%. We have not recovered the pandemic losses. So the media review is upon us. This is the annual program of the government where they focus on looking at where they need to expend more and cut less. And we always tell them every year they put low estimates in, they underestimate how much they're going to borrow, and so on. So we're waiting to see what changes are going to be made in this media review. because the government and the Minister of Finance continues to manufacture a false surplus, given that they continue to ride the balance sheet, a false surplus, given that they continue to ride the balance sheets of businesses by not paying back the funds in the billions, and also by accruing payables in state sector entities by ministries cumulatively owing upwards of $1 billion in entities such as TNTech and MTS and so on. The list is a long list, but those are just two that we are very aware of. So when you don't pay your bills because of the cash base of the accounting system, you give a false surplus. All right. So it's like if a father he gone to work, collect his salary, he come home, he ain't pay the rent, but he tell his wife, the rent is $4,000. He tells his wife, we made $3,000 extra this month, and he proceeds to spend it. That's not $3,000 extra. You're $1,000 short because you have not paid your rent, which is $4,000. So this is the same scenario that you have where the government is owing private sector, they're owing entities that provide services to them, such as electricity and security at schools, and then they are claiming that they've made a surplus, and on top of that, deferring important loan obligations. So they're also not paying contractors for the services and so on. Now, the reality is, we want to ask the question to the government, and we want immediately to ask the question. There was the solar site, renewable energy site that was turned for and so on in South Central Trinidad recently. We want to ask the government, and we immediately pose this question to them. What are the concessions? What are the economic concessions for this project? Because whatever concessions they make there, on one hand, the opportunity cost is that the taxpayer, the citizens, we are losing revenue, and we need to know what we are losing. All right? We hear what we are gaining in terms of electricity, but we want to know what we are losing. What are we giving up? How much are we really paying for this to happen? So that we can do our own cost-benefit analysis, because we are the employers of the government. We are the people. The other thing as well is the NICOAN deal, if I can call it that. The wheeling and dealing that occurred there, and the question would be, what leakages are there, and who covers that bill? Is it NGC? Is it another state agency? Is it the NEC? Is it the taxpayer? And what is the size of that bill? And Mr. Mark will raise other questions on that matter in the Senate, as he's been following that issue, especially in terms of the loans that they would have taken. So I told you that real GDP is still at pre-pandemic levels, and the government has not recovered the economy to the point of 2019. So in 2022, GDP grew by 2.5%, and it's projected for 3.2% for this year, 2023. However, when you consider that it declined by 7.7% in 2020 and a further 1% in 2021, you have almost 9% to cover. The economy is a long way off of even being at 2019 levels. And in 2019, GDP was $22 billion short of the 2015 GDP when the PNM came into office. So we're not even talking about recovering to 2015 levels when they got the economy from the UNC led by Campbell Basabi. So we're talking about just recovering to the low levels of 2019 before the pandemic. It was a downward slide in 2019, $22 billion lost, and then now they went into the pandemic hole, and they sit in that pandemic hole. They have not reached up to the levels of 2019, and that's the question we want to remind the government of that. It's not to celebrate. We are still in a hole, and you're not doing the things that are required to turn this economy around, namely attracting foreign direct investment. I want to close on the point of two things. One is the repo rate and the cost of borrowing. The US Federal Reserve increased their Fed funds rate to 4.755%. And this has put upward pressure on the central bank to increase our repo rate to prevent capital flight. They have not yet moved the repo rate, but there is much speculation that they may do so at some point in time. But we urge the central bank not to consider an increase in repo rate, not at this time. The repo rate simply put, is the way the central bank lends to commercial banks. It's much more technical than that, but and any increase in this rate will have a domino effect, where local banks will raise their loan rates, and this will result in higher cost of all loans, whether mortgage loans, loans for vehicles, loans for business, loans to buy curtains for Christmas. Regardless of what the result will be, some more businesses will struggle, and the cost of borrowing could potentially lead to more business closures and ultimately more job losses, adding to the 65,000 persons who've lost their job based on CSO data. This will ultimately make it harder for the economy to reach pre-pandemic levels of economic activity, the outcome being stunted growth. Now, the government ought to mitigate against possible capital flight by focusing on improving and attracting foreign direct investment. However, we saw Digicel picked up something, one of their key operations, and headed to Jamaica recently. So we're not sure that the government is getting the message on FDI. Now, finally, I want to talk about the HSF. Given the machinations in America, given the high inflation, given the impact on the banking sector, given the fallout in terms of Silicon Valley Bank and Credit Suisse and so on, we asked the government the question as to the total impact on the HSF. At a recent sitting in the Parliament, in the Lower House, the government failed to answer that question, only basically saying that the impact was minimal. Is it 3%? Is it 5%? Because 3% to 5% of 35 billion TT dollars is 1 billion to 1.5, 1.7 billion dollars. So the question really is, what is the size of the impact? But the government failed to answer the question in a way that can give the public, comfort in terms of what is happening with your sovereign wealth fund. This is the savings of you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And therefore we ask the media to put this question to the central bank governor to answer to the citizens, because they are the custodians of our sovereign wealth fund, our heritage and stabilization fund. We ask the media to ask this question to the central bank. What is the impact of the ongoing financial markets in the US on our sovereign wealth fund, the HSF, in dollars and cents? We don't want to hear literature and flowery language. We don't want to hear if it's minimal, maximal, doesn't matter. We want to know in dollars and cents what is the potential impact on with respect to probability, all right, of loss and actual loss. So in closing, we in the UNC are ready for the challenges that the economy are faced with, and will continue to engage the population in all sectors as we prepare on the road to government in Trinidad and Tobago. I thank you. I hand you over back to Senator Mark.
Thank you, my colleague and friend, Obika. Members of the media, I want to begin by stating that barbarians are at the gates. I want to repeat. Barbarians are at the gates. Everyone is living in mortal fear in our land. No one is safe. Nowhere is safe. Not your homes, not your businesses, not our communities, nor our streets, among other places. All are affected, young and old, rich and poor, women and men, the physically challenged, among others. None is in fact safe in our country. The white flag of surrender has been hoisted on Whitehall. The beleaguered and incompetent Minister of National Security has appealed to the population for patience. But how much more patience can the people bear or offer? Brothers and sisters, it is now clear that the Prime Minister has abandoned his post and is literally running for cover. He is ducking and running even from the media. I do have to remind you, members of the media, it is right here, Friday, 14th of April 2023. It is headed in the Trinidad Guardian. Prime Minister slammed media on crime. It's here. Listen to him in opposition. I asked my colleague to just play for the viewing public this.
We are not authorized, and this country cannot call to order its Prime Minister and its cabinet and its political party to say we are not accepting that the government.
This is our Prime Minister calling on the people to bring their Prime Minister under control. And instead of bringing himself under control to answer pertinent questions on the runaway crime epidemic in our nation, he ducks, he runs, and he hides from the population. So, ladies and gentlemen, the Prime Minister, after ducking and running from the media, after kicking the can down the road, after blaming everybody from Kabla, Pasar Bisasa, and the UNC, to the people, to the police, listen, to the children, to the women, everyone, the Prime Minister blamed except himself for crime in our country. So he's now seeking to establish what I would like to describe as new frontiers. So he's going outside of Trinidad and Tobago to blame others. So let's look at where he's headed. And we have to be very plain, very frank, and very brutal. We are expecting a regional conference or symposium to begin tomorrow, Monday the 17th of April at the Hyatt Regency. This is another brazen attempt by the Rowley-led administration to buy time so that he can provide an excuse for his ineptitude on crime. The Prime Minister and his gang of kleptocrats will now be telling the nation after that symposium that, like Dorothy, wait. They are waiting on CARICOM to provide them with solutions and prescriptions. Like Dorothy, wait for another 6 months, to another year, to another 15 months. Wait. That is what this symposium is about. It's a cop-out. Rather than face the people and bring solutions to this criminality and violence plaguing us, he ducks, runs, and hides behind his regional colleagues through what is called a regional conference or symposium. Our republic is wounded. I want to ask the Prime Minister, the duck and run Prime Minister, how will this regional symposium protect our porous borders? How? You have been there for almost 8 years, and guns are coming in here on a daily basis. The last Commissioner of Police told us we had over 12,000, and that was a conservative number of illegal firearms. So you have failed. You think the symposium that you are having tomorrow will rescue you? How will this regional symposium bring about more efficiency and speed in our judiciary? You have been there for 8 years. How? You think a regional symposium will give you answers? We are a sovereign, democratic republic. We have to take responsibility for our own destiny and future. I want to ask this outgoing Prime Minister. He's outgoing. He is outgoing. Wherever a general elections is called in this country, that is the end of this criminal and evil PNM administration. He's outgoing. I would like to ask this outgoing Prime Minister, how will this regional symposium improve our detection rate? How will it equip the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service with more body cameras, which we have been told, Taharqa, in today's Newsday? Look at here, in today's Newsday. Policemen are switching off their body cams. What is the Commissioner of Police doing about it? How will this symposium provide to our young people, as Taharqa indicated earlier, hope and jobs? There are over 1,200 graduates from the University of the West Indies currently on the breadline. You can find them in gas station, supplying gas when you roll in with your vehicle. They are in the Kentucky, no, this one down on Independence Square. KFC. They are selling chicken and chips. They are in Pizza Hut. How will this regional symposium create well-paying and productive jobs for our young people? How? Already bolted to your chest, and it will never be removed. It can only get worse. Is that Trinidad and Tobago, under your stewardship, Mr. Prime Minister, and your beleaguered Minister of National Security, has now been acclaimed as the 6th most criminal country in the entire world. That is your legacy. We are in the company, Taharqa, of Venezuela, Somalia, Afghanistan, Papua New Guinea. Those are our company. Those are our companions, I should say. At the moment, that is where they are. And I just read another report, Taharqa, called the World Population Review, which was published in 2023, which placed Trinidad and Tobago again at number 6 as the country with the highest crime rate in the world. The highest crime rate in the world, number 6, Trinidad and Tobago. I want to ask this kleptocrat, this new monarch of Trinidad and Tobago, the Prime Minister, how will a regional symposium help us to get off that infamous list from the World of Statistics report, the 6th most criminal country in the world, and out of the World Population Review report, a publication out of Washington, placing us as the 6th country with the highest crime rate in Trinidad and Tobago. How will this symposium help us? The Prime Minister has been a monumental failure. We must bow to his chest forever and permanently. He is the architect of the tsunami of crime assassinations, murders in our country. And I will demonstrate why in a short while. If it's one thing the Prime Minister of Barbados, St. Vincent, Grenada, the President of Guyana, the Prime Minister of Jamaica, the Prime Minister of Dominica can probably achieve, and I appeal to them, please convince the Prime Minister to get rid. I want them to appeal to the Prime Minister to get rid of this tombstone. This tombstone is around the neck of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And when you look at the letters etched on that tombstone, it reads H-I-N-D-S, Hines. Those are the letters that are etched on the tombstone of this individual who tells us, not me, I am not responsible for your safety and security. I am not responsible for no crime plan. Mr. Prime Minister, is that the position of your government? Mr. Prime Minister Keith Christopher Rowley, do you have a crime plan? Well, why don't you effect it? Because your minister says he's not responsible for any crime plan. So, when you go to the website of the Ministry of National Security, what do you see? 2 functions assigned to the minister. What is his mandate? His mandate as the Minister of National Security is to maintain law and order. He has to maintain law and order. That is dealing with the crime scourge in our country. But this beleaguered, clueless, hapless tombstone around the neck of the population is telling us that is not his role. He doesn't engage in planning. He has no crime plan. Well, I was a former minister, and I can tell you, as a formulator of policy, which we are via the Cabinet 75-1, that you get your ideas, you get your advice, you get your views from your technocrats, from your permanent secretary, and you formulate a cabinet note, which is taken to the cabinet as a policy for executing plans and programs, translating policy into actions. That is what it is about. This man is not fit for purpose. He does not understand his role. So when the bail bill was introduced in Parliament, who brought it? The Commissioner of Police? That's a policy that went to the Cabinet, and then it went to the AG to formulate. It may have come back to Cabinet, go to a legislative committee, and then enter the Parliament for debate. So when a state of emergency is to be declared, who does that? The police? The police doesn't declare a state of emergency. They may ask that it be declared as a tool, as a mechanism in order to control crime and to preserve law and order. But it is not taken by the police. They don't declare that. The government does. I think the Minister of National Security is in the wrong league. He doesn't understand his responsibility and role. Members of the media, we cannot continue as we are going. The government of Trinidad and Tobago is responsible because they are in charge. They are in charge. The government is responsible for the formulation of policy and for taking action to preserve life, limb, and property in TNT. Let me just share with the population a very important statement that was made some time ago by a very important individual. His name is Thomas Jefferson. I want to share with Hines the tombstone that has been placed around the neck of the people of this country. Let me tell Hines and the Prime Minister before me. Thomas Jefferson, the third U.S. President, once remarked, the first duty of government is the protection of life, not its destruction. Abandon that, and you have abandoned all. I want to repeat for the media and for the people of TNT. The first duty of government is the protection of life, not its destruction. Abandon that, and you have abandoned all. Members of the media, that is what we have faced in Trinidad and Tobago. The Prime Minister and his government, first duty and responsibility is to protect life, not to destroy life. There is a social contract between the people and their rulers, the people and the government. That social contract is broken. This social contract has been broken. It will take a UNC administration to mend and to fix and to address this broken social contract. You know how you know the contract has been broken? Taharqa, look at today's Guardian. Look at today's Guardian, members of the media. Desperate measures are being established in Arang West. You know why? Because the government and the Minister of national security, and the Prime Minister, who is the head of the National Security Council, and his Attorney General, have failed the people. And the people are taking the law into their own hands, because the government cannot protect the people. The government has failed to protect the people, and the people are taking action to protect themselves. That is what this means. And Taharqa, they are prepared to spend from their pockets some $50,000, according to this report, a month, to preserve their lives and to preserve their livelihoods. Members of the media, the Prime Minister has failed the people. He has abandoned his post and he must go. No regional symposium can save the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister must go. The Prime Minister must call elections in this country and let the people decide. We cannot continue how we are proceeding. This is where we are today. So where is this going to end if this government remains in office until the 7th of August 2025? Where is this going to end? Every community is going to be therefore called upon to find money, to hire private security, to protect their lives, their livelihoods, their properties, because of the failure of a government. And by the way, over the period 2016 to 2021, the taxpayers of this country, you and me, and all of us, have spent close to $50 billion on the Ministry of National Security. Between 2016 and 2021 into 2022. And the budget for the entire country, over $300 billion, not million, over $300 billion. And what have we got in return? The highest murder rate ever recorded in the history of an independent Trinidad and Tobago. At the end of 2022, 605 murders. That is what we have gotten. The government must take responsibility. Just as how when the police is successful, they praise themselves. Not even the police. When there is failure, the government must take responsibility for the failure. So don't duck and run. Don't hide. Face the music. Call fresh general elections. No regional symposium will save you. So you now discovered a few weeks ago that crime is a public health emergency. You know the people are staying in Trinidad and Tobago, Taharqa? The Prime Minister, Keith Christopher Rowley, is the only public health emergency facing the people of Trinidad and Tobago. He is the architect, the constructor, he is the builder. of what we have experienced in Trinidad and Tobago. He can run. He has provided us with 3 failed ministers, all of them being tombstones. One, the letters HDILLION. The next one, the letters HYOUNG. And the current one, HINDS. Tombstones. That is what he has provided us. And he now goes to hide behind a regional symposium to find what? Solutions. Listen, you are the problem and you cannot be part of the solution. You have to go, Mr. Prime Minister. You have to call fresh general elections in this country and let the people decide. That is what you have to do. I have a few points today before I close. How can you fight crime when you, as the Prime Minister, received a secret and confidential report from the special branch on a then sitting senator who is now a minister involved with people who is alleged or who have been alleged to be involved in gangster type activity? How can you really motivate and inspire the youth when you have somebody who the special branch has provided information on? And instead of removing that person, you promoted that person. And you want to solve crime? And then not only that, Taharqa, look at the behavior of a former PNM senator. Last evening, we got it on video. You see, Robinson once told us, streams lead into rivers, rivers into seas, and seas into oceans. It is the small problems that lead to big problems. You have to capture it when it is small. Otherwise, it will lead to where we are today. Gangsters are now telling law-abiding citizens, pay up or face death. That is what they are telling people. You pay up or you face death. That is where we have reached under this kleptocratic administration. All they have been doing for the last 8 years is thieving, stealing, lying, and destroying our country. That is what they have been doing. I am calling on each one of them. And you see why many of them do not want to declare their income and assets to the Integrity Commission? They're running. The Integrity Commission have to take them to court. You know why? Every one of them, since they came into power, they have become multi-millionaires. Every one of them. Head of the pack, I am told, may be in the multi-billionaire range. I want the Prime Minister to declare his wealth. And in declaring your wealth, explain it. Explain your wealth. Declare your wealth. How do you get so rich? I am asking a question. Provide answers. Every one of you in the government led by this kleptocratic Prime Minister are multi-millionaires, I'm told. Everyone. So once they become multi-millionaires and multi-billionaires, the people are dying. The people are being murdered in our country. The people are hungry. They have no food to eat. Their children cannot go to school. 3,000 dropouts we have had between 2020 and 2022 in this country. But you know why all this is taking place? Balize House going up for $100 million. They are forcing contractors to pay for Balize House construction by inflating contracts that they are giving to these contractors. Is it any wonder that this evil and demonic individual who runs Trinidad and Tobago does not want to proclaim, to operationalize, and to implement the Public Procurement and Disposal of Property Act? Is it any wonder? We need a criminal forensic investigation into Balize House. We call on the Prime Minister to give the names of all the donors involved in the construction of Balize House through contributions. Name them. You dare not, because you are not a transparent individual. You don't believe in transparency. You operate in darkness, secrecy. So that's the first thing. That is where monies are going. That is why people are dying. That is why they reduce scholarships, Taharqa, from 400 under us, under Kavla Prasad Bisasa, under the PP, 400 scholarships to what? 100 now. Because they're thieving the money. So they cannot allocate monies for scholarships. They can't provide jobs for young people. That is what they are doing. No procurement. And I want to tell you what they are doing as well. Here I have. Here is it. Here it is. It's a cabinet note. A cabinet note. Taken to the cabinet after being approved by the new monarch, the new king of Trinidad and Tobago, King Rowley. This cabinet note was taken by King Rowley to the cabinet. You know when? July 24th, 2020. Cabinet note 1320. Cabinet note 1320. He took it to cabinet for ratification after he took the decision. The man's priority is all skewed. You know why? He's obsessed with office and power. He wants to remain forever as the Prime Minister of TNT. So you know what he has to do? Lock up the opposition. Hire people without the knowledge of the DPP and impose on the Commissioner of Police $66 million to pay SRP Kate and a gang of attorneys from the United Kingdom. To do what? To lock up members of the UNC. This cabinet note states, that the government, through the office of the Prime Minister, under the National Security Council, employed the following firms: Edmonds of the United Kingdom, Marshall McMahon Limited, Open Text UK Limited, and PricewaterhouseCoopers Advisory Services Limited at a cost of $66 million. Let me repeat, $66 million. To do what? To go after his political enemies. Lock up this one, lock up that one, lock up the other. And he believes he's going to win election. That is why he cannot solve crime in the country. That is why our young people are hopeless in this country. That is why you have so much home invasion in this country. Apart from the $40 billion that was stolen as a result of the lack of proclamation and operationalization and implementation of the procurement legislation by this PNM administration, resulting in $40 billion being stolen. You have another 66 million. So you have 40 billion on the one hand over the last 7.5 years. Plus you have 66 million. So 66 million for SRP Gate. But you cut the school feeding program for the people. 66 million TT dollars for SRP Gate. But you reduce scholarships from 400 to 100. You close down technical and vocational centers. But 66 million for SRP Gate. That is what the government, the Prime Minister leading today. There is a link between criminality, violence, and thieving in Trinidad and Tobago. Using public money for private ends, for private political ends. That is what the government has done. We have it here. You want to challenge me? Meet me on the pavement. I have it. You like to challenge people to meet you on the pavement? Meet me on the pavement. I have it. Where you wrongly approved and then sought ratification for $66 million for these firms that I've outlined. That's what you did. To get to do what? To go after your political opponents, or what you call enemies or rivals. That's what you did. So, brothers and sisters, you heard about the great train robbery in closing? I want to close by telling you, but we are doing the party that I'm part of, proud to be part of, and which will form the next government, is doing extensive investigations and research into the great methanol heist. It is worse than the great train robbery of 1963, 8th of August. That was a nearly 2.3 million pounds. This methanol heist, the following people are starring: the Prime Minister. Look out for him. We investigated him. Stuart Young. We investigated him. Look out for him. The governor of the central bank, Alvin Hillier. Look out for him. we investigating him. Claire Gomez Miller, executive chairman of CLICO, look out for her. And I think there's some conflict between Imbud and Rowley on this methanol debacle or debacle. So I don't know where he stands, but we will put him as part of the documentary that we are going to share at the appropriate time. Not literally, but we are doing research. So crime and thieving, crime and corruption, crime and misappropriation, crime and improprieties are linked, interconnected, inextricably connected. So don't come and tell me about the young people, young black people, when they rioted in 2020, he established something called the Watkins Committee, Recovery Committee. They submitted recommendations. Where are those recommendations today, Mr. Prime Minister? Gathering dust. You care about black people? Look at the people who are being murdered and butchered every day in this country. Young black men butchered, murdered in this country every day. Look at the jails. 99% young black males in Trinidad and Tobago. Why are they there? Who put them there? The PNM has been in power for over 50 years out of the 61 years that we have had. And look at the state of the youths. Look at the state of Lavadil today under this PNM government. And you come here to talk to me and talk to us? The biggest set of thieves and bandits in this country are located in the People's National Movement. And the time has come for us to have a criminal forensic investigation into this particular situation affecting our country. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to give the undertaking. I want to suggest, and I'll suggest to the Honorable Leader, that upon assuming office, shortly, either before or when the next elections is called, we must commit ourselves. I'm going to propose that to the Honorable Leader, who will be the next Prime Minister, to ensure that we have open and transparent meetings with all business organizations in Trinidad and Tobago with a view to building transparency and confidence building measures in our country. I will raise that matter with the Honorable Leader of my party, of our party I should say, and seek to have her approval. Members of the media, I can say more, but I don't want to go on further. I think that we have made our points very clear. We have solutions, we have alternatives, we have a national transformation plan to deal with the issue in Trinidad and Tobago, which is crime. And whilst we were in office, the data would show that murders were less than what we have today. Serious crime was down than what we have today. And we did it through hard work, through dedicated work in this country. That's how we did it. Job creation, critical for our youth, as an example. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'll pause at this time, and any questions you would like to raise, you can now do so.
We just have a few questions coming in. Senator Mark, well, it doesn't seem that the UNC is very confident in this regional symposium tomorrow. But do you think anything positive at all will come out of that conference?
The only thing we would like to come out of that regional symposium, because, mind you, any decision taken by CARICOM has to come before the Parliament for approval. Trinidad and Tobago is a sovereign democratic state. So we wish the leaders the best at their conference. We hope that they would find solutions and prescriptions. But in Trinidad and Tobago, the Prime Minister, who is the head or the lead person for security within our region, is a monumental failure. He cannot provide solutions because he is the problem. And if you are the problem, you cannot be part of the solution. So we have no confidence in this Prime Minister being able to find any solutions, because for 8 years, we are now going to the end of his 8th year in office, and we have the most murders we have ever recorded. He is an absolute failure. And Taharqa, at this time last year, we were just 140 or thereabouts murders. You know what we have now? Over 170. The rate that we are going, we might be in the vicinity of 700 murders. And Trinidad will now elevate from number 6 to maybe number 3. That would be his legacy. So I do not have much hope and confidence. I think this could be another talk shop. But of course, we have to be eternally hopeful for proper and positive outcomes. And as I said, I wish those regional leaders the best, because all of them seem to be like us. But we are worst. We are head of the pack. Imagine Jamaica. Jamaica that used to be above us is now under us. We are the 6th most criminal country in the world. Jamaica is number 10. So Jamaica is doing something. So I think the Prime Minister should talk to wholeness and find out what Jamaica is doing to bring down their crime rate.
You highlighted the statement by the Minister of National Security saying that it is not his job to come up with a crime plan. What are the opposition's views on this?
We have said openly that the minister is not fit for purpose. He is a failure. Remember, the first job he had was the Minister of Works and Transport. Then they put him in public utilities. He failed. Then they put him in the office of the Prime Minister. He failed. Now he has no faith in his 4th term or opportunity he got. So I think that it is clear that the minister does not understand his functions and responsibilities. As I said earlier, he has 2 mandates on his website: maintenance of law and order and public safety. He has to formulate ideas with his technocrats, take those ideas to his cabinet, get approval for his policy. He have to translate that into law, into regulation, into bills that you have to bring. You do that. But you don't tell Trinidad and Tobago that, like Pontius Pilate, you wash your hands. I am not responsible for your security and safety. I am not responsible for the crime plans. But if you're not responsible, who is? You have to work together or in close association with the police commissioner. So, you see, I made the point earlier. The police will ask for tools. They will ask for measures to deal with law and order. They will come to the minister. The police do not produce a bail bill. That has to go to the cabinet for policy approval and then drafting by the Attorney General through the CPC. And then it comes to the Parliament for debate. When that is approved, who implements it? Who operationalizes it? The police of Trinidad and Tobago.
You mentioned that the Prime Minister seems to be seeking the advice and input of his regional colleagues. If the Prime Minister were to come to the opposition and ask for to work with the opposition in dealing with the issue of crime, how will the opposition respond?
The opposition has always been open to any discussions with the Prime Minister and his government on the issue of crime or any other matter. We have no fear whatsoever. We met with them some years ago. We provided them with a lot of ideas. When COVID came around, we went to them, we gave them ideas, and they just poo-poo our ideas. This government is not serious. This government is not serious about solving crime or solving anything. As Taharqa said, shortly they are going to announce to this country that the HSF has lost billions of dollars because of the mess that took place recently on the global market, including high interest rates. They are not telling us how much the fund has lost, but I am predicting, as Taharqa, they will soon tell us what we have lost.
Mr. Obika, the IMF recently projected, I think, just over 3% growth for Trinidad and Tobago. What are your thoughts on this?
So when you consider 2020 and 2021, the economy declined by cumulatively 9%, 7.7% and 1%. The economy last year would have grown by 2.5% and 3.2% projected this year. So you're still under 6%. So 6, if you're doing basic maths here, 6 is less than 9, significantly so. And therefore, the economy, even at the end of this year, we cannot hope to even reach back to 2019 level before the pandemic. So it will take another year or two, again, based on the trajectory of the economy, because IMF also says the following year is 1.5% projected. So it may not take us until 2026 to return to the low levels of 2019. And at the same time, Minister of Trade and Industry has failed to retool the trade policy, and the government has no proven record on foreign direct investment. The only thing that could rescue this economy is attracting foreign direct investment in a meaningful way, but they have lost 7 billion TT in their first 6 years, based on UN data. So the reality is, when it comes to economic projections, we are still in the pandemic hole, and the government is not showing any signs of doing anything differently to rescue us from that.
Now, you mentioned that the Finance Minister has said that we are at full employment, but is he being straightforward with this statement?
Right, so what he would have basically pointed to is that labor force has declined and unemployment rate is 4% to 5%, which basically is alluding to conditions of full employment. I think even a child in primary school in Trinidad and Tobago will know that, hey, unemployment, people losing their work. Places closing down, people losing their work, and as a result of that, it is clear, anecdotally for anybody in the country to know, that we lost jobs. But when you look at CSO data, it is also clear that 65,000 persons less are employed now, at least up to September last year, that is the latest statistic, than when this government took office in the last full quarter of the UNC-led government. So the Minister of Finance continues to be cheeky, hiding behind any fig leaf of a statistic that he could find to justify his inaction, his incompetence, his government's failure in terms of boosting economic growth. Jobs and access to jobs is the best indication of the health of our economy. And if people are not employed, the economy is not doing well.
With regard to the subsidies, grants, food support for families in need, and in light of what was just mentioned with regard to the HSF and possible losses that would have been incurred there, can the country afford more handouts?
So just with regard to HSF, the concept is unrealized loss, right? So it may not be that you sell anything, it's just that the value of the assets could have declined. The government just said minimum. They didn't tell us the dollar value as to how much they actually declined, so we want to know that. In terms of giving support to persons in need, you just have to look at where they're spending money now. They've spent more money than the US government has spent. So it's a question of priority. If you place priority on people, then you will spend the money on the people. They haven't, after 8 years, completed schools. You know, my daughter's school is incomplete. And when you go to all communities around the country, everybody could point to you to a school that is incomplete. And they still in the old school, because this government has no priority on children's education. They have no priority on, but they have priority for other things that are really and truly vanity projects that could wait. You can do some of those projects that may attract tourists and so on, but if you consider the access to education of a child and healthcare, that ought to be a number one priority. And before you even reach education, before you even reach the hospital, you have to eat. So if you can't feed your citizens, then it means you are failing in the most basic of objectives of any government. And I guess as the government, their mantra is they're right, yes. So if the people are hungry and they're not reacting, that means they're not hungry at all. That's just a figment of the UNC's imagination. But we call on citizens to raise their voices, all right? Raise your voices, and the government will be forced to listen, okay? We will stand by the people of this country so that they can get justice. And if justice comes in the form of a hot plate of food for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I think that will be justice well served to the people of Trinidad.
Those are the questions.
In fact, just let me just add to what Taharqa said. I have some notes here and set me to. When I made a point as it relates to establishing greater transparency and confidence building measures in our society upon the UNC assuming office after the next general elections, I mentioned business and business organizations, but my notes were very clear, but I forgot to mention it, but I need to record it. We are not only dealing with business in terms of confidence building measures, but we are also seeking to ensure that the labor and the trade union movement has a place and a chair at the table of that particular arrangement, as well as civil society. So we are not talking only of business, very important, but we are also talking about another important stakeholder in the tripartite mechanism, which is labor, and of course we have to include civil society. So I just wanted to add that inclusive.
Okay. Those are all the questions we have.
Okay, members of the media, on behalf of, in fact, may I ask Taharqa, seeing that I open, I would like to close.
Yeah, thank you, Senator. On behalf of the leader of the opposition, the sixth serving Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago and the next Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, on behalf of my colleague, the leader of the Senate bench for the opposition, Senator Widmark, and all of us in the opposition in our nation's parliament, we thank you for joining with us, and we look forward to your suggestions and your questions. Just to state, tomorrow we will be at Cuba South Hall. That is in the constituency of Cuba South, with Member of Parliament, a seasoned trade unionist and former Minister, Rujanathan Darson, and we invite you to join with us, either journey with us to to Hoover South Hall at 7 p.m. or join us on social media and on the airwaves so that you can participate in this process, which is rebuilding our society, because as we are on the road to government, we are carrying the people with us. I thank you and have a good day.